What is up? Today's video is going to be on top 5 things to look for before you buy a sport quad. Man, I see a lot of people go out and buy these things and they start noticing this stuff after the fact. This is a 2003 Suzuki LTZ 400. This is mine. It has been ridden hard a lot lately, and so keep that in mind as it's dirty. Anyway, number 5 on that list would be your bearings and stuff. So you want to make sure that you're not about to buy something that needs a whole bunch of bearings, bushings, and stuff like that. And a good solid way you can check for something like that is shaking the quad. Now, when you're doing this, you want to look for play in this area, not just movement, because the quad, it's going to move from the tire. Your steering stem, shake it, see if it moves. Look for any weird play when you're doing this. There shouldn't be any loud smacking. Then in the rear, especially with these sport quads, these carrier bearings are pretty common for me to see those for sale like that on Marketplace, needing carrier bearings. They're easy to swap, but you don't want to pay full price for a quad that needs that. I consider that kind of stuff general maintenance. Even if I'm being honest, I'm not the best at keeping up on maintenance, but I do better than a lot of these bikes I see on Marketplace. I'm just not as meticulous. Kind of like my chain. Looking terrible right now, because I rode it through some water and got it stuck in some sand. I'm gonna have to buy a new chain. Number 4 on that list is to make sure the engine sounds good. It should fire right up. Shouldn't sound like a bunch of rocks rattling around in there. These LTZs are actually common with that. If the timing chain stretches, it will sound like a bunch of rocks inside it. It sounds absolutely horrible. And this cam chain tensioner is not a fix for it. It is a temporary fix. If these are installed wrong, it causes all kinds of issues. I'm getting a new big bore kit soon, and I'm going to do the timing chains when I do that. This was just a temporary fix for me to continue riding. You should sound like... fire right up. If you don't know what it should sound like, take somebody with you. Take somebody else with you and have a second opinion. You gotta stay tuned to the end, and I'll do some spitballing and some just random facts that I'm gonna give you. Next on that list is gonna be case damage. That is something you wanna make sure you look out for. Crankcases are never cheap for a sport quad. 400EX, LTZ, 300EX, all of them are very expensive, and each one has their own different issues that they end up having arise. So if your chain derails, especially with this stock case saver, and you nail that case, mine's not damaged at all. But if you nail that case, it'll put a hole in it. That hole sometimes can be repaired with JB Weld, which is ghetto, but you want to look for stuff like that. And then there is a, kind of see it back there. There's a mount coming off of there for this shifter. If the chain nails that, or someone steps on the shifter too hard, that'll break that off of there, which causes some issues to arise. It's just something you want to look out for, case damage there. These starter gears, if you have an electric start quad, TRX 450Rs where they're kick start, you want to make sure all of that stuff is nice and solid. Number 2 on that list, and that is very common, is somebody will say, oh, it just needs the carb cleaned. It is very hard to start. My quad starts up. I have to choke it cold. After that, for the rest of the day, it starts. First press the button, no issue. Valves are a very common issue. Some of the machines, I want to say the early 450s from the Hondas, they would suck the valve into the head and basically cause an issue where you have to get the head like rebuilt, not just replace the valves. Or you have to replace the valves, or you have to shim the valves. And you really don't know if it's going to need all that repair until you open it up. Shimming the valves isn't that hard, even if you don't have any mechanical experience. And in the carb isn't either. But All of that should be taken into consideration. You don't want to go out and drop $3,000 on a quad that's hard to start, and lo and behold, you have to do valves on it. All right, number one on that list, and I see a lot of people make this mistake. Before you buy the quad, make sure it has a VIN. Now, Suzuki's, it's mounted on this little plate right here. Hondas, they are up here on a plate as well. It's behind the front bumper. The Hondas is very common to see them gone. If the quad was wrecked and that was bent and damaged and removed, it's going to bend this front bar too. So don't fall for it if the seller says, oh, well, it was wrecked, so it got removed. No, that VIN is on there. If that VIN's on there, don't buy it. All right. So that's top 5, but I'm gonna go ahead and spitball some other stuff so you have it, you know? Why not share this info? You know, I'll see somebody like, oh, it's low hours, but I don't have an hour meter. My quad's got a lot of hours. So if you wanna know a sign if a quad's been well maintained, it's gonna have a clean air filter. They're generally pretty easy to get to. Pull the seat, airbox lid, no big deal. Chain. My chain looks bad from my last ride. Shocks. That's what they should do. Not be bouncy. That's bad shocks. Check the oil, coolant, if the quad's cool enough to check it. Manual cam chain tensioners are not a good thing. That means the cam chains are already stretched. This right here is wore deep. This quad has a lot of hours on it. Especially when you look underneath right here. See all the wear into the paint? It takes a lot of riding to do that. Control arms. This stuff doesn't just happen over a few hours. I'm getting new control arms for this one though. If you want to save yourself some headache in the future, if you're buying an LTZ, make sure the swing arm's not cracked back here or on the other side. It's 400EX, LTR I believe is the same. The ones with the round carrier, and you got bolts back here, there's 4 bolts. Make sure they're not stripped. Those are a pain in the ass to get off if they're stripped. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe. And what I'm saying is don't buy the quad if it has any of these issues. Because my quad's not perfect. And she rides. I'd drive this to New York from Oklahoma if I wouldn't go to jail. What I'm saying is make sure your price accommodates that. Make sure you accommodate the fact that you're going to have to do those repairs, or it's going to be a problem at some point. And research common issues with certain ones. 0304 LTZs had a problem with cracking on the front end of the frame. Go ride something.